Hey team, welcome to this week's episode of The Inspired Show, the show that is dedicated to help you become that best version of yourself, mentally as well as physically. In this week's episode, we're going over the most commonly asked questions when it comes to getting into shape, giving you the answer that you need to help you move forward in your journey. But before we delve into today's show, if you've not done so already, subscribe down below to ensure you get updated every time we post a new episode. Give this a big thumbs up if you enjoy it, and let me know any big takeaways in the comments down below, plus any questions you've got so we can cover it in any future episodes as well. And don't forget to share it with anybody that may get benefit from this episode as well. Down below, you'll also find the links to all our social media pages where we post daily on tips on getting into the best shape possible, plus access to our exclusive community as well, which will give you the structure and support you need in order to see the best results possible. So today's episode is all about debunking some of the common questions when it comes to getting into shape, and hopefully you're gonna get a lot of benefit from this. So the first most common question I get asked from people that are looking to lose weight is, how many calories a day do I need in order to lose weight? Now, this is a very interesting question because there's a whole host of websites and apps that will give you a variety of different answers. Now, the first thing to remember is when you get all these different answers, it's because they all use slightly different algorithms and formulas to calculate your calorie deficit. Now, in order for us to calculate the deficit we need, there's a few ways we can do this. Firstly, we can do something called a diet recall. This is probably one of the most accurate ways to do it, but it does take a little bit more time and you do need a little bit of patience with this. So how does diet recall actually work? Well, at the start of your journey, you simply do not change anything about your eating. You keep eating exactly the same. Don't make any changes, don't make any reductions, just keep eating the same for the next 7 days. However, what you need to do is accurately log every piece of calorie that you consume through food and through liquids. At the end of that first week, you're then going to have a clear understanding of how many calories you're currently consuming at the moment. And there's a high likelihood over the course of that week, if you did not change anything, your weight and measurements would have stayed the same, showing that you are in maintenance. So let's say for easy maths, it works that you're consuming 3,000 calories per day on average. So we know it's more than likely that your current maintenance is 3,000 calories. So all we need to do is create a 10% deficit off that. When you create a 10% deficit off that, it's a manageable amount to allow you to start losing weight. So 10% off 3,000 is 2,700. So that's one of the most accurate ways to do it. The second way to do it, if you're not as patient, is to use an online calorie calculator. Now, these calorie calculators are just a rough estimation. So when you pop in all your details, your age, your gender, your weight, your height, and your approximate activity level, it'll give you a number. It'll give you a maintenance number. Now, a lot of these websites will have a function that asks you whether you want to gain weight, maintain, or lose weight. And when you click these different buttons, in the case of losing weight, it will take off a 500 calories deficit for you. Now, for me personally, I do not believe this is the best way. So if you are going to use an online calorie calculator, I recommend you take 10% off that maintenance level to make it more manageable. So why am I only taking off 10%? Well, when it comes to your calorie deficit, anything below maintenance is going to be a deficit, whether it's 1%, whether it's 10%, whether it's 50%. But the most important thing when it comes to losing weight, but more importantly, making it consistent, is adherence. Now, the bigger the deficit, the harder it's going to be to stick to. So for some people, they find it quite difficult to take off 500 calories and then stay on track, especially without restricting certain foods. And we know about restriction, it can make it very, very difficult to stick to in the long run. So take off 10%, and that for me personally is the best way to do it. And then as with all calorie tracking, it's about trial and error. Trialing it for a week or two. If you're losing weight and measurements, awesome, you know you're in a deficit. If you're not, and you are tracking correctly, then you need to just reduce it slightly again. So hopefully that made sense in terms of how many calories you should be consuming on a day-by-day basis in getting to your goals. And again, if you need help with this, in our exclusive community, we work out your calories for you as well, and the link is down below. So another common question that I get all the time is, do we need to be exercising in order to lose weight? And this is a really great question. Now, exercise, does it contribute towards weight loss? Yeah, sure. Like when you exercise, you are going to be burning calories, especially if you're doing more cardiovascular work. When you're lifting weights, potentially going to be building muscle. So in turn, it is going to raise your metabolism, which means you're going to be burning more calories at rest. But these things they only have a very small impact on things, because the amount of calories you actually burn from exercise isn't that much in the grand scheme of things in 24 hours of your total calorie expenditure. When it comes to building muscle, the amount of muscle that people generally build isn't going to have that much of an impact on the overall metabolism right away. So when it comes to exercising, you do not really need to be exercising in order to lose weight. In order to lose weight, we need to create a calorie deficit, which we can do through our nutrition, and we can do through increasing our daily movement, and also through our mindset of being consistent, identifying any things that are going to hold us back, our bottlenecks from stopping being consistent. And you can do that without any exercise. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be exercising, because exercising is great for your mental health, your physical health, getting fitter and getting stronger. But when you are doing exercise, make sure you do it for the right reasons. Don't exercise because you want to lose weight. Exercise because you want to become a stronger version of yourself, a fitter version of yourself, a more resilient version of yourself. So when it comes to exercise and weight loss, it's not necessary. It will contribute, but not as much as you think it is. Your main focus when it comes to fat loss is nutrition, daily movement, and mindset, and then exercise for the right reasons. The next most common question I get asked is, do I need to be cutting out my carbohydrates in order to lose weight? And this is a question I get asked all the time. And why do I get asked this question? Well, a lot of people would have tried a low-carb approach at some point in their life, and they've probably seen pretty fast results. When you cut out carbohydrates, it's not uncommon for people to be losing 4, 5, 6 pounds in their first couple of weeks. But why does that happen? You see, when we're consuming carbohydrates, and when we're holding on to carbohydrates in the body, we're also holding on to water as well. So when we take those carbohydrates out, we're also taking a lot of water out of the system as well, which means we see a big drop in the scale weight. And a lot of people sometimes put 2 and 2 together and come up with 5, because when they reintroduce carbohydrates, they see a big spike on the scales as well. So they feel that the carbohydrates they're consuming are making them fat. But they're not getting fatter, they're just holding on to more water alongside the stored carbohydrates. Now, when it comes to dropping body fat, the main determining factor is going to be creating a calorie deficit, whether to reduce carbohydrates, fats, or proteins, or a combination of all of them. There's been a lot of studies that have been done that show there isn't much difference whatsoever between a low-carb diet or a high-carb diet, providing they are in a deficit. And something that we need to think about as well is the adherence level of it, because the best approaches to losing weight and keeping off is adherence. Now, for a lot of people, they enjoy eating carbohydrates, and when you start restricting foods or cutting foods out, you start building up resentment and resistance to the approach you're taking. So I would definitely recommend keeping carbohydrates into your nutrition, especially if you enjoy them. And it's about making balanced lifestyle changes rather than cutting out foods or individual foods completely outside of your lifestyle, because again, it just makes it unsustainable for the vast majority of people. Now, is that to say it doesn't work? Yes, it does work, but adherence is key, okay? And that's super, super important to remember. And last common question we're going to go through today is, how important is sleep to losing weight? Now, sleep is something that's often overlooked by a lot of people. But sleep is one of the main foundations for not only losing weight, but living a healthy life as well. Sleep is super, super important for recovery, for regulation of hormones, for your mental health, for cognitive function. It's super, super important. And when we have lack of sleep, it does massively disrupt hormone regulation, where our appetite hormones are going to be out of sync, our hunger hormones are going to be out of sync, and our energy levels are going to be a lot lower. And guess what? If your goal is to lose some weight and drop some body fat, you don't really want high appetite, you don't really want high hunger, and you don't really want low energy. So this is going to be problematic for anybody that's trying to create a calorie deficit, reducing their food if they're feeling this way. So sleep is super, super important. You want to be aiming for at least 7 to 8 hours per night. You want to have consistent sleep-wake cycle, and you want to be building up a relaxing routine at the back end of the day to ensure you get a good night's sleep, and also having a energizing morning routine so you can start the day the right way as well. And we have got some episodes in the YouTube channel about sleep as well, so make sure you check those out for a more in-depth talk on sleep. But hopefully we've debunked some common questions for you guys today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give it a like, please give it a share, and if you've still not subscribed, hit that subscribe button as well. And as always, any questions, feel free to drop me a private message on any of my social media pages. And until next week, have an absolutely amazing day.